Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is...
The Wellness Journey podcast series presents Spice of Life, a seasoned woman's guide to renewing her essence. On this journey, you will find all of the flavors you thought you'd lost. It's there. You have it, especially while in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. On this show, experts in the field of wellness will give you the chance to be restored, re-energized, and renewed so that you can be successful along your wellness journey. Hi, and welcome to the Wellness Journey podcast series. It's so wonderful to get a chance to share with you and to get a chance to provide you with great information from some of the premier experts in the field of mind, body, spirit wellness for women and all the people who love them. Today we have someone who I really admire. I love her approach to life and the messaging that she has throughout her site, Dr. Barbara Lowe. And, you know, the thing that really drew me to her, actually, she reached out to me on LinkedIn, but the thing that really drew me to her is that we have a lot in common in terms of our overall approach to life. Now,
Yes.
Dr. Barbara Lowe is a licensed psychologist who founded and owns her own practice in Durham, North Carolina, where she's got 50 employees. She's also a board-certified life coach, a somatic experiencing practitioner, a speaker, an author, and a lay minister. She's a wife, a mother, a stepmother, and has used her training and the wounds of her past to minister professionally and personally to women for many years. Dr. Barbara has created the Heart's Returning Home method for overcoming difficult childhood experiences and messages to help women move from where the life I dreamed of to real soul satisfaction and kick-butt success in life. She offers blogs, vlogs, podcasts, courses, intensives, retreats at drbarbaralowe.com. And I'm just so excited to have her here with us today. Dr. Barbara, thank you for sharing some time with us on the Wellness Journey podcast series.
I am so excited to be here, Lynnis.
Well, we're excited to have you. I love your philosophy of life. And, you know, this particular series is called A Seasoned Woman's Guide to Renewing Her Essence, Spice of Life, A Seasoned Woman's Guide to Renewing Her Essence. And I'm all about the idea of reinventing yourself if you find the need to do so, even after 40, 50, or 60, because I certainly did. At the age of 51, I left a great job in corporate America, a great career, and decided to figure out what else I wanted to do when I grew up. And 10 years later, here I am. So I guess you could say I figured it out. But, you know, so many women, when they reach the 40, 50, 60 and beyond, they know that there's something else that they're supposed to be doing, but they're not quite sure how to go about doing it, or even if it's too late. So before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us how you became so passionate about working with women and helping them kind of discover what other kinds of things they need to be doing as they continue on this wellness journey called life.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've spent many, many years crying out for a change in my own life, just out of my own hurts and wounds. As a matter of fact, one of the weird things in my season of life right now is that I seek God just for relationship and not just for and not out of healing. Like I had such a need for healing just to live that I was so dependent on him. And now it's like, wow, I don't feel as dependent, but I am dependent because I'm choosing to depend on him. So that's a wonderful, beautiful thing. I grew up in a home with a lot of substance abuse, a lot of physical abuse, domestic violence, and I was often kicked out of the house in drunken rages, left on the street, different things like that. So it was really difficult. And I developed some of my own coping patterns along the way that were not very healthy. My senior year of high school, I barely graduated because it was just hard to just even go to school. I was very depressed and thought I was kind of stupid. Ended up becoming a Christian and going to a local college and ended up graduating from a really good university as valedictorian. So God has been good to me. And along the way, through two veins, through my training, I love to train, I love to learn, I'm a voracious learner. So through my training along the way, let me say three veins really. Through my training, I've grown, healed, healed. Through my traumas, I've grown, healed, because I have had a lot of hard things happen even in adulthood. So I'm a firm believer in pulling it forward into transformational trauma, that no matter what I go through, it can be turned into rivers of living water. No matter what I go through, I can bring it forward to help the masses. And then also just through a relationship with a loving God and different people along the way that God has used to heal my life. So those three strands together have driven me into wanting to give away all that I've been given. I love seeing people healed. I love it. And I know that it's possible because, Lynnis, I live it. I live it. And it's not that I'm perfect and, I'm honest about things. This is who I am. At 48 years old, I mean, this is it, right? Flawed is the new fabulous, I like to say.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely I said I was 62, but almost 62. I always bump my age up a year so I can get ready for it.
I do too. Like for 6 months, I've been saying I'm 48. Right. Now I'm 48. It's like, wait, I wasted my 47.
I know that I'll probably stop doing that when I start looking at. So until that time, I say, I'm 62. Oh, you're right for 62. But when, I start saying, no, I'm 62, they say, oh, okay. Well, I was not telling my age then. But, it's just a number. I love that you shared with us some of your background and from whence you came, because it gives us a frame of reference. And I find that many people in the mind, body, spirit movement or in wellness movement, that many times they get into that because of something that they've been through and what they learned along the way and how they healed, and they take that and they create something that helps others. And I just think that's so wonderful. I know it's certainly true for me. And when I look back at where I was at 51, I was at a very critical point in my life. I was suffering from an anxiety disorder. I was very unhappy with my job, and I had an epiphany. I woke up one morning and I couldn't stop crying. Although I wasn't feeling anything, it's just that my emotional closet was just so full, it just kind of overflowed and came out on the floor and couldn't stop crying. And it was then that I realized that I needed to do something. And I thought to myself as I was going through my process of trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do, one of the things I wanted to do was to help women not get to that point where they're so overwhelmed, so stressed out, the tears are just coming and you don't even know that they're coming, or you don't even know why. You understand what I'm talking about when I say that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the time you've gotten there, there's been a lot of yellow flags and orange flags that you haven't looked at. And I know I've been there in my life, more so in my late 30s, early 40s. I remember people talking about self-care and I would literally get offended. But I was pushing, going. And really, I needed to stop and smell the roses more and learn that flawed is the new fabulous.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. The flawed is. I love that. Is that you're saying? I have to borrow that, Dr. Barbara Lowe?
Yeah. I think I should make T-shirts that say it and sell them on my website. What do you think?
So I think it's absolutely true. One of the things that I wish that we could kind of let go of this word, the word perfect. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. Yet society has a tendency to hold us, or we hold ourselves to this idea of perfection, which is probably one of the main stressors, because that's impossible. God is perfect. That's it. The rest of it is just a crapshoot. I mean, you really, there's no guarantees in life at all. So the idea of pursuing perfection is such a frustrating pursuit, because it never gets there. It's like, saying the same kind of thing of tomorrow never comes. It never comes. I mean, you never live on tomorrow, because by you get to tomorrow, it's the day. It's the same thing with perfection. It never quite gets there. When you take a look at the things that women over 40 in particular look at, what kinds of tools, what kinds of things could you advise them on in terms of living a life that is more engaged, a life that is more healthy emotionally? What kinds of things they should be thinking about?
Well, so there's two. I'm going to go back to the Heart's Returning Home, because it has three parts to it that I think tie to this question. So I think we need three to look at it three different ways. Today's the day of threes, apparently, for me.
Okay.
So first, we need a lot of safety and stability. And the first part of my curriculum works on safety and stability. So we need to look at our now, look at our present. What am I doing now? Where do I need to resource my life now? Where do I need to up my social support? Where do I need to set boundaries? Where do I need to invest as far as my relationships? What skills do I need for relaxation skills? A lot of times women at this age, some women have developed a drinking problem and they don't even realize where it's come from, but over time they've found, oh, I think I have some kind of dependence here. And it's a good time to reflect and realize I do need to relax, but I'm beginning to be dependent on this external on wine, my wine at night. I have to have it every night or often. And so finding ways to relax that are truly healthy for our body. Actually, this is out of my field. It's more in your field, but I think that they've come out recently with alcohol being a carcinogen to the digestive tract, which is really interesting.
Yes. And one quick word about alcohol. I usually advise my clients, if they want to relax, to have like a cup of red wine, and that has to be the good red wine. It can't be the table wine, or the kind that you bring out of the cabinet that you cook with, or something like that, to help with relaxation. But you're absolutely right. You have to be careful about that. My mom told me a story once I'll never forget. She said that this is back in the day, in the 60s, about 69 or 70. She was a teacher, and after she got home from work, she would have a small can of wine. Back then they had half cans, now it's 8 ounce, like 4-ounce can of wine. She would eat her pig skins and Tabasco sauce, and she'd read her Good Housekeeping magazine, Cosmo, or whatever it is she's reading. She said one day, she couldn't hardly wait to get home to have her beer, pig skins, Tabasco, and magazine, and something in her mind clicked. She says, wait a minute, what if I didn't have my beer, Tabasco sauce? And, she said, I began to feel like I was looking too forward to the beer part. And that's when she stopped herself and changed it to something else. But it was something very small and incremental that had kind of snuck in there. And then she realized that there were some other things that were missing in her life as a result. I was growing up, my sister was growing up, we were becoming less dependent upon her. We had after school activities, so when she got home, we weren't there. And she realized that she was like pre-pre, because we were like in junior high, pre-pre empty nest syndrome. And she was replacing that emptiness with the wine and Tabasco sauce and pig skins and magazines. And so she switched it up and got another hobby. And I think she still did the Tabasco sauce and pig skins, but she got another kind of thing to fulfill that void. And I think what you bring up is very important, very powerful. Many times women, we don't always show up in our lives. We kind of like go through automatic, and we don't even realize we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes those addictions, or like quasi addictions, can sneak in. So thinking about how to relax in ways where we're not dependent on something else. And so tools like that. And then I think another area that we want to work in is looking at where our past is still impacting us. I'm a big believer of looking at it bringing it, healing it, meeting unmet needs so that I can live in my future, not in my past, right? And so there might be some things cropping up. And as our kids get older, even our kids can be triggers to things in our past. I mean, right now I have something that I'm refining with my 19-year-old son in my own relationship with myself, because he's really pulling away from me and making some bad choices. And I've had to set some boundaries, and it's kind of triggered a little mom thing from my own mom with me, where I'm like, okay, this is a little area where I'm going to grow some more, where I'm going to grow more in not feeling rejected, basically. Anyway, and then the other piece is really looking at what my purpose is. Really, how can I invest? I mean, at 48, I'm like, this is probably my last trimester, right?
Mhm.
And so how do I want to invest? I feel relatively good. And I do think about how to keep my health up. And that's an important thing to think about, but I feel relatively good. How do I want to invest? I've been given much. And so pouring out, moving from purpose and letting the Spirit of God pour out through me and using the things I've been given. I love to grow people, whether it be my staff, whether it be people that I reach through the Dr. Barbara ministry and methods, or if it's people, my clients or my kids, or people who come to our life group at home and some of the lay ministry stuff we do. I love to grow people. And so I'm looking for ways to invest. And I think that's so important, is to be in that flow of who you are, how God made you are, and how you can flow in investing in others or investing in this life.
I think it's extremely important to do that. And I love that you have those three components, because they all are kind of interdependent upon each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that if there's something that's off in your mind, body, spirit continuum, then it's just a matter of time before the other parts. If your mind is off, it's just a matter of time before the body and the spirit go, or the spirit, so on and so forth. And I think that one way to begin to really find out where you are is to check in with yourself. How important is that? And what do you tell women in terms of how they need to be checking in with themselves?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so important for us to check in with ourselves. There's something called introception, where we're looking into ourselves and where I'm at and how my body is feeling and what's going on with my emotions. We use a part of the brain called the insula, and that part of the brain is highly tied to empathy. And so it's interesting that the more we can know ourselves and check in with ourselves, it's actually directly tied to the empathy skills we're going to have with other folks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's some neurology behind that. So important to check in with where I'm at emotionally, where I'm at physically. When you think about your emotions, you don't feel them in your head, maybe a little bit in your head, but it's coursing through your body. You're feeling tension in a part of your body. You're feeling activation in a part of your body. And if we can be with that, we're more integrated. The more integrated we are, the more whole we are. Really, wholeness and mental health, and health is a picture of integration.
Yes.
It's also a picture of fluidity. You think about chaos versus rigidity, either in the body, soul, spirit. Either way, wholeness is more in the middle. It's fluid and it's also integrated. So we want to be able to be with our bodies, be present with our bodies, understand what's going on. Know that your emotions are actually yourself communicating with yourself. So it's not just to be pushed down or pushed aside. We really do need to listen. We still need to act according to our values, but we have to listen to what's going on in our body and in our souls.
That's interesting, because I think many times I know it happened with me, we have a tendency to push things back in our emotional closet. Mm-hmm. And it gets to be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But I also think that many times we push it back because of the fear factor of really digging deep and figuring out what's behind those emotions that we're trying not to think about. How important is it for us to confront those kinds of feelings?
So important. So it is true. We're afraid of ourselves, right? But as long as we're here on this earth, I'm living in this body. This is my home. You know, we think about our home needs to be a refuge, like our literal home. We want it to be a refuge. We want it to be a safe place. Well, this is really my home, this body I'm in. And so I really have to be comfortable with it. And I can say that from my own healing process that I'm actually not afraid to go different places with myself. And it's so amazing. It's so different from how I used to live. And it is so freeing to live this way, to know that when a part of self comes up, even like a wounded, vulnerable part, that I can be with that part of me. I've developed this tool called self-momming. So I actually can mom that part of me. I can be like my own mom to a younger part. And I don't need to let a part of me overwhelm me or control everything, because I can know that no matter where I am, I have me. And so I have all the resources that I've developed over time, so I can be with any part of me. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. In fact, you said something that was very interesting. A lot of women over 40, 50, and especially 60, and I'm one of them, they don't have their moms anymore. I lost my mom through very tragic circumstances when I was 31. She was hit by a fire truck on her way to work, and she was only 56. And that's how I ended up developing the anxiety disorder, because of how I was told. It was post-traumatic stress. I had developed anxiety as a result of that, but wasn't even diagnosed properly until many years later. But anyway, one of the things that I miss the most, of course, is being mommed, of course. And I raised these 4 daughters, and so many times I say, gee, they would probably be even more fabulous if my mom had been here to impart in them, because she was such a wonderful person. But then I also realized that there are bits and pieces of my mother and the experiences I shared with her for those 31 years that are still with me.
Yes.
And many times that comes forth in a lot of ways. So when you talk about momming yourself, are there exercises or something that you share with your patients to help them develop that part of their relationship with themselves? Because I think that's a wonderful idea, the healing.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's actually part of my curriculum, and something I have stuff on it, and some of my stuff on my website as well. But so let's give an example. All right, I'm going to share an example that I've been sharing a lot lately. But my husband was I was late for something. We were going to something important. He thought I was mad at him from an interaction we had earlier, but I wasn't. Anyway, I was a few minutes late, but he thought me being late meant I didn't want to go, so he took off.
Oops.
Yeah, so it's a big miscommunication. We've made up and everything is good. But when I was little, my mom used to take off and threaten to commit suicide, or take off, leave me on the side of the street. And so that is a big trigger for me, right? So I felt this sense of abandonment that was way disproportionate to the circumstance. So what I can do with that is I can be with that part, and literally I can be like, so I can realize something is happening in the present, and I can scroll back on the past and like, where is this coming from? Because this is a very strong feeling. Okay, this is not adult Barbara. This is little Barbara. And I can say, and I wouldn't say this out loud, but within myself, I can say, sweet baby girl, I am here with you. God the Father is here with you. So it's like I have a father and a mom. And you are not alone. And I love you, and I will never leave you. Even just saying that right now, it might sound a little woo, but it feels so good.
Oh,
And
it
is
does feel good.
Yeah, and it really is healing for me. And it's interesting because the research shows us when we pull up old memories, it's like it kind of rebuilds chemically each time. And so we always know what really happened, but when we integrate in these new resources from our adult self, and then also spiritually, resources with our relationship with God, it's filling in our need. It's giving us an experience of something that we needed back then, but we're getting the experience now. Our mind doesn't really know the difference. It knows what happened and what didn't happen. But as far as in our emotional selves, it shifts us. It moves us forward.
I can so relate to that. I do something with visualization. And it's really kind of built up over the years. But my vision is that I'm a little girl getting on a yellow bus, And I've never got on a yellow bus as a little girl. My parents always took me to school, but this is the vision I take myself when I'm feeling unloved, unhappy, anxious, or whatever. And my parents are standing there as their younger selves, probably in the 50s, which I never saw them that way. That's how they are in there. And they're saying goodbye, and I'm getting on the bus, and we're driving down a tree-lined street. And then we get to a place where there's no trees at all, and it's just like almost like ocean meadow. And then suddenly there's this big house on the left side. The driver pulls up, and when I get off the bus, I'm no longer a little girl. I'm myself. I'm a woman. And I walk up to the house, and the doors open. It's a big house. Right across as I walk in, there's a den, a study, but I don't go there all the time. I usually go to this big dining room. In the dining room are all of my loved ones and ancestors who have passed on. And they're talking and having a good time. In the kitchen, I can see my mom, and she's, doing dishes, fixing dinner, whatever. So, I say hello. Sometimes they all say hello to me and give me a hug. Sometimes they'll say, oh, she's in the kitchen. And I go in and we talk to my mom. And then she says, oh, go on outside. I go on outside to go down these steps. As I go down the steps, I'm in what looks like an ocean meadow. It is an ocean meadow because there's an ocean out there. And at a bench, sitting there, is a man. And I had to give him a name. So I called him Angel Jesus. I don't think he's not Jesus, but he definitely is an angel that's been assigned for me. And every time I sit down, he always says, well, I've been waiting for you to come visit me. I knew you were going to come soon because something's going on in my outer world. And I know that sounds like a crazy vision, but it gives me such comfort. Just recently, my ancestors came outside and sat around me and Angel Jesus, and they built this tent of blue lights. I know it sounds crazy, but this is where I go when I feel the need for comfort, when I feel the need of understanding that transcends anything that maybe my husband or my girlfriends can understand. And it brings me comfort. And that's a visualization that's been built over the last 2 or 3 years. But every time I talk about it out loud, it almost brings tears to my eyes because it's so real for me. And this is an experience, of course, it's never happened. This is all in my mind. So I do understand what you're talking about.
Lynnis, if you were my client, that's the kind of thing that I would hope that you would create. I love that. You're integrating in places where you felt loved, memories, even taking the bus ride gives you like a transition period to really kind of soften into the imagery. And then you've incorporated your, spiritual beings there through the Lord or angels or a connection with the Lord. And nature, nature's, some people I've worked with a couple people who had traumas related to nature, but for most of us, nature is a resource. And I think that is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yes. It's interesting. I don't think I've told my listeners this. No, listeners, I'm not losing it. Well, maybe a little bit. You know how I can get. But I think sometimes you have to figure out what works for you. And then to heck with the detractors because they're not you. Mm-hmm. And I think that many times that we as women have this one disease that's really, really hard for us to get rid of. You know what I'm going to say?
Comparisons?
No, the need to please disease.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why do we do that as women? Why is so much of ourselves connected to pleasing other people?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's been research. I forget the person's name who did this research. If people are interested, they can email me and I'll tell you the book to go to. But we have fight, flight, and freeze, right, when we are under threat. But there is also a tending response that a lot of women have. You think about if a let's say in many years ago, we're with our kids and a lion comes up or some kind of predator or bear, or even now, are we going to fight, flight, and freeze if our kids are with us? No, we're going to tend to them, right? And so there can be this tending response that we can get stuck in that can sometimes come from some of our traumas or some of our histories, and that we can get get looped into it. And another thing that can happen for us women is
For
sometimes
more
we
wonderful shows
don't
like
have a
this,
good
please
sense
go
of
to
self based on the way that we were
selfdiscoveryradio.com,
raised. And
podcasts,
so
see our
one of the
lineup.
things I work
And
on
if you
with
wish to
clients
support us,
and
we have a
people
funding
like my
button.
tribe is
Please stay tuned for our next
helping
show.
you to be in touch with yourself, whether you're by yourself, feeling comfortable in your skin, and when you're with other people, and really getting in touch with what is my yes and what is my no, and letting your yes be yes and your no be no, and really working on those nuanced differences of what is it like to be fully me and fully with someone else, and navigate that.
Yes, being fully you and being okay with being fully you. Because I know a lot of times as women, we have a tendency to morph ourselves based upon who we're with. Sometimes to keep the peace, sometimes it just seems easier. But I feel like the more we morph like that, we begin to lose bits and pieces of ourselves. I use this analogy that, we have a tendency to put everybody else on the front burner. We put ourselves on the back burner just for a minute. But many times by the time we reach back to the back burner, it's, where is it? Where am I? It's hard to find. And that kind of takes me to what you talk about in terms of self-care, and a wonderful ebook. You guys have to go to her website, drbarbaralowe.com, and get her book on the essential self-care tips, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Wonderful, because there's some on there that I guess I've thought about intrinsically, but have never written it down on paper. Wonderful tips. And there's one in particular I wanted to ask you. I'm just kind of off script, but you say discover and live from your passions. This is what you call essential. This is an essential tool. Why is that so important, especially for women over 40?
Well, a lot of times our kids are growing up, right? And so motherhood's a big part of what we're doing. And then we're also at that midlife point where we're really thinking about, what am I contributing to life? I mean, not everyone has kids, but we have people that we're mentoring. We have, it's really a stage of life, and researchers theorists have talked about this too, that it's a stage in life where we're thinking about more than just being productive, but really leaving a legacy. And, if you look back in your life, there's a thread of who you are. I mean, I loved being in my playroom with all my stuffed animals, and I was like teacher or principal, or, there's this leadership in me where I want to shape lives, and it goes all the way back. And even the classes I took in high school, even with how crazy my life was then, and what I've always loved, what I've always been passionate about, what I'm good at, we can study ourselves and learn what we're put on this earth to do, because we are put on this earth to do certain things. And at our, when we're getting to that middle age time of life, we really want to refine what that is, and move out of those doldrums and move into what we love and what we're passionate about. And sometimes there are seasons, we know as women, we have many seasons in our lives. And so we also need to be aware when one season is ending and a new season is beginning, and really to be able to fearlessly, or with fear, but also with courage, move into that new thing, because that's where that freshness and aliveness is. And
I so agree with you. I believe that things happen for a reason, for a season, that nothing lasts forever, and that's okay. The idea of permanency for the rest of our lives, is that whole idea, that whole concept has been going away for a long time. These days, you can't even go up to the same store you used to go to when you were growing up, and it's even still there. There was a time where businesses would be in existence for 4 or 5 generations. Now we're lucky for 30 years. Sometimes the kids don't want to carry on that legacy. They don't want to do that anymore. Things change. People sell businesses now. So the idea of permanency is not the same as it was before. But I think that's okay, because I look upon it as an opportunity to see what else is in there, what else is brewing, what else is inside of us that we want to pull forward.
Yes.
When it comes
Absolutely.
to being well, from your perspective, where does the spiritual connection come in? Why is that important?
Well, I think we're made for it. You know, I believe we're made in God's image. I do believe the Bible says that. I believe the Bible. We're made in his image. And so we are spirit. We're primarily spirit. We're eternal spirits. And so we do need a connection with him. And you look at human beings all over the world, we're drawn to something spiritual in most cases. And it's him. We're all looking for something, and it really is a connection with him. We're born into this world unlike, let's say, a baby foal. A baby foal is born in the world, and it can stand, it can eat, it can find food. I mean, it needs its mom's help, I know, but not like human infants. We're brought into the world, and we are so, so dependent on our parents. And I think God designed it that way because it created us to be beings based on attachment, this sense of having that healthy, secure base with our parents. And he wants that to be a picture of what he is. I believe that God, I'm saying he, but the Bible talks about Adam and Eve, and that Adam was created in God's image, and Eve was taken from Adam. So I'm going to stay out of any kind of comments on that. But what I want to say is this: God, I think, is both male and female in characteristic. And so he's very nurturing, and he's all the things we would think about as far as feminine as well as masculine, and those kind of stereotypical kind of assessments that we make. Anyway, and we're made for a connection with him, just like we're made for a connection with our parents when we're early on. And then when we are serving him, we are bearing eternal fruit. So, I think human beings can do wonderful things, frankly, apart from him, because he's in the world, and there's a lot of goodness in the world, and people do amazing things because of how he made us. I mean, people are truly amazing beings.
Yes, I agree with you. Amazing beings, amazing machines. These bodies that we have are amazing. I'm sorry, you were going to say something else.
Yeah, I mean, we're amazing, but we can only bear eternal fruit if we're doing it with him and through him and for him. And that's ultimately really what matters in this life. And there's so much more joy in the journey in knowing him. And I equate living in him and working with him. Like, I was just at the airport 2 days ago, and those people movers that move you along quicker. So you can walk on those, or you can not walk on those and you'll move at a certain pace, or you can walk on it and you're going to move a lot quicker. And I think he's like a people mover, that there's a supernatural power to move you quicker, to get you there quicker, exponentially quicker in being with him. We can go through these natural processes, but with God, sometimes there's these supernatural interjections that are just like so amazing.
Yes, I agree. Yes, it's like the game Pac-Man when you come upon an energy bite and you bite.
Yeah.
You bite and there you go. It's kind of accelerated, warp speed kind of thing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I always say that from my perspective, in order to be well, you have to have that spiritual component, whatever it is that you call it. I can't imagine not having that spiritual component, because that would mean that this is it. There's nothing else. And I'm here just by myself with happenstance. And I don't know. I know there are some people who do believe that. But my goodness, what a horrible feeling to feel that there's nothing else, that you're just here by happenstance. I think that recognizing that you're here for a purpose, for a reason, for a season, that you were created to be able to be a conduit of joy, of good, of peace, of love. Those kinds of messaging, regardless of whether you're male or female, but especially if you are a female. I think those are the kinds of things that we want to remind ourselves of, that we are more good than not. And stop beating up on yourself, girls.
That's right. We were talking about perfectionism earlier, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, but really now I strive to be average with streaks of greatness, because then when I'm great, people are like, whoa, that was fantastic. But if I set the standard of trying to be great all the time, that's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And you're right. That becomes the new bar.
Yes.
I remember, I was that girl when I was in corporate America. It was one of the reasons why I was just worn out. It was always about superseding that bar, and that bar was so high already. And it was interesting. It took me a long time to unlearn that in my business. It's one of the reasons why I have so much going on, because when I first started, I want to do this, I want to do this. But, after almost 10 years of that, keeping that going is like, okay, what's the priority here? What's the main message that you want me to do right now? Because I figure if you're operating within your gifting, then God's going to work out everything else in terms of being able to make a living doing it or whatever. And I want to just really send this message to so many women, especially those of you who I know are retiring or have retired. The exciting thing about retirement is going into that further journey of discovery, getting a chance to do those things that you just didn't do back then because you were working, you're raising kids, whatever the different role you were playing. Now you get to play the role of, being in retirement, but not really. You've retired one life and you're picking up another one. An opportunity to be able to really grow and to figure out who you are, who else you are. I know when I didn't retire, but when I left corporate America, there was a whole another thing of gifts, talents, and abilities that I was not using at all because that job didn't require it. But when I started out as an entrepreneur, I got a chance to use all of those things. And that's such a wonderful feeling to be able to be totally you and not just partially you. And I think retirement's a great way. Aging is a great way to get into that. Now, yes. Now, Dr. Barbara, for those of you, those of us who want to stay in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you and to find out more about your programs and your services, your podcast?
Yeah, sure. So my website, drbarbaralowe.com, I think we've already mentioned that, /self-care if you want the self-care book, www.wholelifepodcastshow if you're interested in that. But I think the website is really the main way. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay,
and of course,
fantastic.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay. That's right. That's how we found each other.
Yes, that's right.
Right there on the show page, everyone. If you just click there, you will see a link to her information about self-care, the ebook. You also see a link to her podcast and also a link to all her social media as well as her website. I want to make sure that everyone can find a way to get in touch with Barbara, Dr. Barbara. It's so wonderful to get a chance to talk with you. And I mean, I could talk to you for another hour. You're just brilliant in your approach.
So same, Lynnis. I love your approach to life. I love what you're doing. I love the way that you're saying, 60 is the new 20. 40 is the new 20. What do I want to be when I grow up? I love it.
When I grow up, absolutely. And if there was any way that I would want to be remembered, it would be for maintaining that vitality and that energy, which can be ageless if we allow it. It may not mean that we're able to, jump over a bridge necessarily, but we can still walk to the bridge with a lot of vitality with the hopes of doing something really great when we get there. It might be different than what we did when we were 20, but it can still be great. It can still be powerful. It could still be an impact that you leave on the world, like you have and like you are doing, Dr. Barbara. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
On the show. It's been wonderful to have you. And thank you to all you listeners. I'm so happy that you took a chance and decided to spend some time with Dr. Barbara and I. Please take a look at the show page and all the other podcasts that we have, as well as if you happen to be someone that likes to listen to the podcast, go to Anchor FM and put in The Wellness Journey. And you can listen on your favorite app, whichever listening app you like to listen to, iTunes, Google Play, whatever. We're all there. Just click on that and you'll be able to listen the way that you like to listen. Thanks so much for joining us on the Wellness Journey podcast series. It's been wonderful sharing with you, and I'll see you again next time. Join me next week as we dive into other ways on how to live in a way that is beneficial to your mind, body, and spirit. Till next time, keep that spice of life candle burning.
For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.